Now it's all set.
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me, I'd like to bring the meeting to order. We're all here. We've got a lot on our agenda. 7 o'clock. And like to report attendance. No one is on Zoom tonight, so we don't have to, everyone here is here except Jay, who is excused.
Can we just remind folks to state their names for minutes
Yes.
when they speak to?
In, if the public wants to speak, we do need to have you say your name. Recording secretary.
Do we want to introduce ourselves just? since
Yeah,
there
that'd be
maybe-
good. Can we start with you, Jean?
Sure, I'm Jean Bobrovsky and show.
I'm Carol Wyman.
Tom Claus. Ed Rippey.
I'm Kate Plumley Stewart. I'm the select board rep.
Shirley Green, Chair. We have public comments, it's on there next, I think we'll probably save that. To go after. Allow people to speak, have the public comments after we have the, updates and presentations. So we need to approve the minutes. Anyone like to put them on the table?
So moved. Second.
Are there any omissions or corrections?
Just a question though, did we do the exhibit at the Harvest Festival?
No, we
Oh,
didn't.
we did.
I'll bring it. Yeah,
Okay,
there wasn't anyone available
okay.
to do.
I was available, but I was
Busy.
Yeah.
We need a little more notice to plan ahead for that. Okay, so no corrections or? Okay, so, then, we'll, move to approve the minutes as reported.
So moved.
Second.
So, is everyone in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the next thing on the agenda is an update on the septic system. I think you're the best one to do that, Kate.
Yeah, so the septic rule, you guys got a copy at the last meeting and I haven't looked at current changes, the packet for select board just came out. But the meeting is this coming Monday. The public hearing will start right about 6 p.m. So the public is invited and of course, members of the Conservation Commission who want to come and weigh in individually, on the septic rule are invited to come as well.
Any questions from the commission?
I have some concerns about them.
Yep, so you can take them to the public hearing, because
Okay.
that's what's gonna be happening, at this point. Because we've been doing many,
Right.
many meetings, and so if there are concerns, you can certainly discuss them with the town manager, but also bring them to the public meeting hearing, because that's when they're gonna.
So if you guys don't want to hear them, because you want to hear them
Oh,
since you're here.
We can't, I mean, certainly, it's just, it's gonna, it will need to come from you to go.
And I'll do that.
Yeah,
Just,
okay.
I'll
I
stand.
just
up
wanna
and
be
just-
fair.
Yeah.
Yep.
Essentially, I support the whole thing. But there's a couple things that I'm feeling not too comfortable about. The whole purpose, I think one of the driving factors in this had to do with the sale of property. Because remember, if somebody bought a house cash, they didn't have to do anything about changing the septic. Whereas if somebody goes through the bank, they had to do that. And that just seemed ludicrous. It didn't seem appropriate that one way of paying, you don't have to fix the septic, whatever you do. We've got a lake we want to protect, so you should really fix the septic. So this sale of property within Enfield's protected shoreline, I think that was one of the driving things, and I'm glad it's in there. But it doesn't really say anything in that statement about the fact that bail systems would need to be replaced. I mean, it's pretty obvious,
Yeah, I think
but should that statement be in there?
It's in the document further on, yeah, so it's not gonna be restated.
Okay, okay,
But I think something that is important that's a newer development since I believe we met is that the law changed. It did get signed into law that when a property changes hands, regardless of financing vehicle, it gets an inspection, which is different.
right.
Um,
And I actually didn't see that as something, a reason it came about at all. I feel it came about because of the awareness of the cyanobacteria blooms and the causes of them. And the septic leaching into the lake would be a big cause of it. And that, to me, that was a reason that we and other towns decided that this was a proactive thing to do rather than wait and have to be reactive.
right, and I agree with that. However, the runoff accounts for 80% of the problem, and septic is somewhere between.
Well, it's part of, it's part of what the whole picture, what,
Right,
and it can be, that might be an average for, like, we didn't have much, but if you had a serious problem, it could be even higher.
right, and we don't want it, so that's why I initially say, and I still do support the whole concept. I have a problem with the penalty section. I have a real problem. $1,000 a day,
So it says up to 1,000.
I know, but
So that is you see the RSA printed in there?
Mhm.
That is a state law. We do not make state law in this town. We follow state law. So we can't change state law.
okay,
You have to go, if you don't like it, you need to go to your state representative. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something, we have to put in the penalty. Sometimes we get into a situation where you think something is outrageous and it should definitely have a penalty, and you find out all you can do is $100. And but if
Yeah.
it's state law, that's all you get. So this is up to, and there was vast discussion on what would constitute, a fair and appropriate penalty in terms of how you work with someone. You don't go over to your neighbor and slap them with a penalty on the
No,
first day,
no.
right? So the idea is that you're working with people and that the penalty would be for people who fail to do any of the work and respond.
And we actually, when the first ranking came out, this committee voted that the penalty should be higher. That will be.
yeah, because it was $100 a month. It was $100 a month in March of 2023, and then it went to $1,000 a day.
I think it was a day before,
Yeah.
but yeah, it still was very low.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very low.
And we found out don't have a choice.
Yeah.
To any other.
This, yeah, I have a couple. Obviously, I've got a brand new system, so this doesn't affect me. I'm concerned about neighbors that might have difficulties in meeting their financial needs. And I think a clause that says no fine shall be levied if owner is working on addressing these issues. I think that would give a lot of peace of mind to people if that clause was in there under the penalty section.
I think you're gonna get into some hairy legal territory on working on.
Okay,
But I also think it's really important, and I can't state this enough, it's important to elect people who will oversee the town in such a way that we're fair to our neighbors, right? Like it's something we can all do. I feel like I would expect if somebody had a financial hardship, that first and foremost, we would do two things. We would send them to the Department of Health and Human Services, which this town has by law. We have to help people stay in their homes, right? We're not in the business of kicking people out of homes, no matter what terrible story someone tells you. It's a horrible thing to do. It's not good for us. It's not good for them, right? It's not good financially for the town, because if we lose money, no matter what, right? Don't get it back usually. And
So,
Yeah.
on the, if there is a problem in your system.
Yeah.
The money should not be a factor in making sure that the system is fixed.
so we have that financial component, right, for more immediate financial needs. And then there are a number of resources. I know DES, she mentioned some, the town has folks that we've actively worked with to make sure there are grants, there are low interest loans. So, and I think it's really important to focus on don't want to pay versus can't pay, because look, adulting is terrible. None of us want to pay, right? It's just part of life. So, I mean, paying for septic, did it during COVID, very expensive, not fun. No, you've done it. But I think for somebody who truly can't pay, there are measures there. to make sure they get help.
Mhm.
And I think this town has been very proactive about helping people who want help and who will seek it.
So it states fines up to $1,000 a
Yep.
day. Who determines what they actually are going to be?
So that's an operations decision that would rest within the town manager or their delegate's office. Unless for some reason they brought it to the select board, typically fines are administered in operations. In this case, this is a health order. So we have a health officer, so my expectation would be they would be involved.
It would depend on each individual case. I mean, there may be some people that would have financial, but there may be some people who are just resisting doing.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Big difference. All right,
Any other
Thank you.
comments from the commission? Is there any comments from the public? Then, we will move on to the, Laramie Farms Wetland Crossing Special Exception Review, and I believe we have guests here tonight to speak on it.
But,
Yes.
How you doing? My name is Carl Dubay, president of the Dubay Group, and we're in Londonderry. And we do civil engineering and land planning, surveying, landscape architecture, that type of things.
Can I just interrupt you a minute so that people know why, this is being heard
Yeah.
at the,
Sure.
at the Conservation Commission. I meant to do that. It says, if, let's see. As part of the ZBA application for a special exception for wetlands crossing, the ZBA shall request the recommendations of the Conservation Commission, Planning Board, and Health Officer. And this needs to be done at least 20 days before your hearing with the zoning board. Which means, unfortunately, your zoning board hearing is going to be changed.
Correct.
Yes,
That's
because we
about
don't
gonna
have
be-
that 20
I
days.
think it's now gonna go to, November 12th.
Yes. Okay, I just wanted to explain that so people would understand.
And Steve Doherty is the
I'm a developer.
and also we have the landowner, John. When you read the ordinance, it basically says if you're going to have a wetland impact, there's certain ways you can do that without asking for a variance. And that is to a special exception. So a special exception with ZBA, there's 4 criteria for that. They're different than a variance. And you are absolutely right, Madam Chair, they want to have the input from the Conservation Commission. So we have Laramie Farms, I'm sure you've heard of it before. The project design includes a bunch of townhouses and apartments. Phase 1 is townhouses, and then in the back there are apartments, and about 222 of them. And we do quite a few townhouses and apartments throughout the state. And some projects have some wetland impacts to them, obviously, and we do a lot of that work. So this project's been totally, fully surveyed, fresh, wetland delineations all done and everything. And this has been kicking around now for at least 25 years, and we have, delineations from way back even then, and they're all very similar. So we put a design together. We actually submitted plans to the ZBA, and it looks like someone gave you copies of them.
Yes.
So, okay, so I
you
have,
brought them too.
I bought extra copies.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I know it looks like you,
Oh.
so you have some copies, but they might be,
No, double
Yeah,
check.
that's my computer.
Okay, I think we have it
You know,
completed.
so-
yeah, so these are a little bit, they're on 11x17, just like yours are, but
Thank you.
they take up the full sheet and they're a little bit cleaner.
Oh, I see what you're saying, Steve. Okay, can I see one?
If we have enough, I just have to make sure we have enough for the conservation members that want them, or,
May I have one
Yeah.
for minutes as well?
Yeah, I was gonna say, why don't you?
Do we have enough?
Put that together and then. I'll have it on.
Can I have one over here for minutes?
Oh,
as
sure.
well?
Sure.
so, I think we might. So, these are the same plans that we submitted to ZBA. They're essentially the same plans, that we submitted earlier, to the ZBA, for the variances. And, what we did is, we actually cleaned up a little bit, and reduced some of the crossings and put some head walls in and advanced we had,
I really can't hear what James said, I'm sorry.
You'll
I-
need to move to
It's
the
okay,
right.
it's okay.
oh, I could talk louder if you want.
No, I haven't heard anyone else speak except for
Yeah,
It's
that's
best to sit in the front, right in the front row.
I tried that.
I know.
I still couldn't hear you.
I'll talk loud.
Okay.
All right.
Come sit here.
So,
Yeah.
so
You can sit at the table if you'd like to, right up here.
that's lower.
The chair right there.
Sit at the table. I don't bring anything to the table.
Well, we want you to hear this.
Sorry.
So, we did improve the design. There's some areas that we advanced the design. We are doing the drainage design and modeling. We have sewer design. The project's obviously on sewer and water. And, we advanced that design, since then, and that's what we submitted just recently to ZBA. So you see that, we are working on the sewer systems, the water systems, drainage systems, emergency access systems, and, utilities and all of that. We've actually simplified some of the housing down to the rear of Maple Street. We had multiple homes over there with more wetland impacts, and we eliminated those wetland impacts altogether in the backside. So essentially the same basic design that you've seen before. So Attorney Cronin's office put together, again, the application for the special exception. There are 4 criteria for that. So in the ordinance, it says you can do this with a special exception if you meet the 4 criteria for the uses of utilities, water impoundments, drainage, access, driveways, any type of access. And we have different types of access on here. So all of those wetland impacts involve that and only that. We don't have any impacts that are within 50 feet of a building. We don't have any wetland impacts that aren't allowed by special exception. We don't have any parking spaces over a wetland impact, but we do have access, driveways, roadways, water, sewer, drainage, ponds. We have treatment areas. So all of these things are done to the town and specifically the state standards, putting in a development like this. So all of this is done per the book for that. So we identified those and put together the required paperwork for that as well. I think Rob from the town asked us if we could supplement this with a few additional items, and we did that, and we have those here. There's basically just some pictures, photos of some aerial photos, and also a cross-section through one of the wetland impact areas. That is a typical wetland impact, showing the section of what we're doing for work for those components. So I do have this, so it's 1 page. It has section blow-ups on there, and it explains distances. You wanted to know the distances between the wetland work and the homes and property lines that are near us, and they're in the order of, they're over 600 feet. I mean, we're talking 600 feet plus from a wetland impact to a house. So it's substantial. And most of these wetland impacts are actually going to be revegetated and naturalized. Most of these are slopes that are associated with the drainage and treatment systems and roadway and driveway access points. And so the majority of all that work is basically going to be slopes that get revegetated and naturalized and left that way. We're not fertilizing or having lawns or anything like that off those slopes. And so that's basically what this little packet has, and I'll just pass these around if you'd like to have them. We're going to show them to ZBA as well. And I'll just step you through, you can maybe take one and pass it down.
Is there going to be any clear cutting down on these slopes initially?
Well, the super majority of these slopes are already clear cut. So if you go to the second page of the packet that I'm sending around, the first page is a section, I can describe that later. But the first picture is a drone, picture of the project in the areas of the open impacts. We call them the fingers because they're wetlands that are actually on the side of a slope. And they're basically, you wouldn't know they were just by walking around, but they do, trigger the delineation standards for the Army Corps for a wetland. It is really basically based on water, but of course you still have at least the 50% occurrence of, vegetation and soils. So there technically are wetlands, but they come up the side of a slope back down again. They're like fingers that come up. That's basically the biggest impacts we have. We also have two other impacts for the roadway access for the project. And that's through two swales, and we're putting in 4-foot open bottom culverts on those, and that's typical to what our work with DES and Fish and Game and all that. They like to see those, and we're doing that. And that new access road actually helps us get up to the water tank, the water tower through this project. There's an easement there. And so we'll have a better access for the town with.
That's what you call the emergency access.
No, this is the primary access
Oh, the
that's
primary.
paved and everything, yeah. So those two access points are for the whole project, for everything, including access for the water tower.
Does the Department of Transportation approve the access point?
We have been coordinating with the Department of Transportation, so the DOT, and the main access point would be on the state road. And that's being scoped out right now, and we've talked to them, and our traffic engineers are updating that. The same design was previously approved about 25 years ago. For
2007.
2007, I'm sorry. And that would be updated to this project. So we do have an emergency access road coming up along the backside of the project and up the hill. And that's the majority of the wetland impact, which is basically situated on that. It's a clear cut slope already. And that emergency access drive would be for emergency access and for the sewer, to connect the sewer into the system. So that would be allowed by special exception as well. So the first picture we have here is a picture of the side slope of the majority of those impacts and where the emergency access drive would be. So it's a clear cut slope, is clear cut some years ago. And adjacent properties were also clear cut along with that. And that's where we have our sections to show you the distances for houses. So we're about, over 600 feet up the slope for that. And we have proper drainage, intercepts and everything else. So that's sort of an idea of what, this is not like a virgin, like it's not a swamp or anything we're impacting. It's the side of a slope that happens to have 4 or 5 fingers of wetlands that come up. And that's basically seepage, which we are actually going to control. We have to with an alteration of terrain permit, as you probably know. So that just gives you a sense of context of what we're dealing with when we have these impacts.
Do you have that plan, how you're gonna control it?
Yes, and then we also, we don't have to go through all the pictures, but we did use the Google drive-by pictures along Maple Street and looking up the slope. And so there's some homes on Maple Street, about 600 feet away. There's already an existing access easement for access and utilities there, and that's where they did a lot of the logging road. That our emergency access drive would go on the top of that, in the same location as the logging road that was there. And you can see they put crushed stone there and everything. But beyond that would technically consider to be a wetland, and that's on an existing easement that this property has for this very purpose, actually. And that's already existing. And then there's a picture of the field that if you look up on Maple Street, there's a picture of the field. You can look way up, and there's a field that was clear cut and it's growing in already. That's basically part of that system that we're talking about. And then we have some other pictures along Maple Street as well that Rob suggested that we just bring to the meeting. So So the design plans that we, put together, we have the main access, from the state road. It goes up a hill, the same design, same slopes and everything as that was done in 2007 approved. And then, we have the first phase, which is, the 80 townhouse units. And that also provides a connection for the water tower. And it has a roundabout and a cul-de-sac, very heavily landscaped, and, a series of treatment ponds, drainage and all of that, for that. And then it comes to a roundabout, which acts as a cul-de-sac. And then the 3 apartment buildings beyond that. And those apartment buildings have, parking, in an underground garage system with elevators, very, very, very nice, appointments on these buildings. They have, access all around the buildings as well for fire and everything and parking and, all of that. And at the very end, the town asked us to make sure that we provided a emergency access road from the very end all the way down to Maple Street. That allows us to co-locate, the sewer as well, that, connected onto Maple Street. We'd be rebuilding portions of Maple Street while we're there. And, so that's really about it. So the plans that we submitted, you are seeing, you see the 10 impacts that we have. And, and then as you go into the plans, there's grading plans. So the whole project, at 30 scale, we have grading and utility plans. Those are being advanced, very nicely. Most of the slopes you see there, almost all the slopes you see there, outboard of any access. Yep, so you can look at grading plan A as you come into the
I'm not
project.
wearing my glasses.
Yeah. So, all those slopes would be revegetated, naturalized, because it's just the right thing to do. We don't need to be having big lawns or anything like that. And we do have an access, point for the water tower and everything. The townhouses are very, very nicely appointed. They all have garages and all of that. And as you come through, you can see that the drainage systems, we have some really nice ponds. Most of these will probably be wet ponds. They'll look like a real pond that ducks can go in and that type of thing. Those are all done to AOT, permitting standards with DES. And, we'll be providing also, the minimum requirement of, the volumetric recharge and treatment, on the project as well.
Has the permitting already been, initiated with DES?
We have not submitted to DES yet because we needed to get the design advanced to a certain point and then share that with the town. And we needed to do that in a stepwise fashion. So this is the second step that we're providing, as we come along and work with the committees and boards. Where we plan on, obviously meeting with planning board next as well as ZBA. And then moving that advanced, design properly. So,
Go back
Yeah.
for a second. So, I have only got one land use planning course ever under my belt. I have a business degree. So help me out in plain English when you were speaking before about the impact is, are you saying it's like a calculated area of like the roof and the impervious surface? You're offsetting or how is?
So
that?
a wetland impact is basically the square foot of jurisdictional wetland that we're impacting, whether or not, it's a temporary impact or we're regrowing slopes on top. So we have a huge slope on the side of this hill that's been cut and there's seep coming out of it. And we deal with that. We have to intercept all that. We also have to treat our own water and everything. So basically, if we have a wetland impact, we have to file with the state, which is DES. And they require a certain amount of plan and design work. They usually like to see at least a preliminary design, and then as they're going through the permit review process, we advance it to final design and everything else. And associated with the DES wetland impact review, Fish and Game get involved very heavily. We work with them every day, and we know what they typically expect, and we do that. We do our designs to basically wildlife friendly designs and everything on that. They make us do a whole bunch of things, which we'd be happy to do on this project, as well, and that's typical. And that's through the alteration of terrain permit, which is a drainage permit with the state. So the alteration of terrain are AOT people at the state. They all talk to each other. They all used to work in one building. Sometimes they work in their houses now and come together. We have Zoom meetings. But we coordinate that So we coordinate all the state permitting together. They all talk to each other. If you can't just serialize it, talk to one department and not think the other department's gonna know what's going on. So we do it all together, just like we're doing here at the town. So the DOT, AOT people, the Wetlands Bureau, the sewer reviewers, all of that, they all, want to know what's going on and they compare notes and they want to see a good design. And those expectations are pretty well written in the regulations. So part of that is, a good drainage design. And that's basically alteration of terrain. And we trigger a AOT permit here, anything disturbing more than 100,000 square feet. Typically, if you're not near a lake, but anything over 100,000 square feet, you need an AOT permit. Basically, that AOT permit is a very high level of drainage design and review and calculations that you have to make. So this project will fall under that, which is fine. And that's basically, drainage on steroids. We have to absolutely over-design this. We have to over-design it for the, the extreme storms that they have
Yeah.
now. The extreme storms, everything.
Back here.
Right, and we have over-designed for all of that. We also over-designed for treatment. So drainage treatment, there's a whole spec book on all of that. We have to do certain things to treat the water, to accept the water from the roofs, for example, and that's a cleaner water than pavement water. Obviously, you know that. You've seen quite a few of these probably. And then, that gets pre-treated and then that gets replenished into the ground. There's a certain requirement for all of that as well. There's certain BMPs that we have to use. Obviously, there's erosion control and everything.
That's a VMP.
That's
perfect
practice.
That's been.
That's man-
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No,
And,
that's fine.
so this, usually the Conservation Commission,
I would know it, but I'm like,
Right.
I'm gonna make
They're-
sure.
when we actually file for the, wetland permit itself, this commission is gonna be looking for all of that. Yep. You're gonna be looking for all of those criteria, all the alternative analysis. That manual, is our Bible. We work with that, every single page of that manual every day. I couldn't quote exactly what's in there, but I know everything. So that manual goes through, the design. Are you balancing your cuts and fills? Yes. Are you, minimizing your wetland impacts? Yes. And how are we? And we have to prove all of that. So we do that with the state and also we do all the drainage design. And on this one, we do know there's seepage coming out of the slope. So we want to make sure we intercept all of that and put those into ponds and then keep that water on our site and then meter it out slowly, to match the pre and post development situation. So, all that would be calculated and everything. The first step on that is the special exception, which is basically identifying the project design, and then looking through the 4 criteria on a special exception with ZBA, which is, A, B, C, D, and that's all outlined in here. And I can go through that in a minute. So, yes,
Is the alteration of terrain, a plan that's in progress now, or are you finished?
the design is in progress, which is really the final drainage design. So you'll see on these plans, culverts, catch basins, drainage pipes going to different ponds. Those ponds would actually get, most of them would get 4 bays. There would be, probably some, storm tech site systems in the fill areas under the pavement for the differential flows as well, that we would be required to do. But it all is one package with a full design and a drainage model and a big thick drainage report and all that with the calculations. Those got all reviewed. And usually an AOT permit is coordinated with the wetland permitting at the state. So I can assure you at the state level, they have a very, very high level of design review and that it ties everything together. As a matter of fact, they won't usually on a project like this, they will make sure their permits all get issued at the same time. They'll wait for the other agency to get to their point where they're satisfied with the design before another agency issues the permit. So they all talk to each other, which is great. It's great coordination. So, for these wetland impacts, they are all related to access and utilities, water impoundments, which are our ponds and everything. And, that was outlined, in the application that Robin, put together. And, she goes through a background of the project and everything, discussion, and she has, the 4 criteria. And so this criteria really is it an appropriate location? And that's the first criteria. The second one is that we're not impacting property values. And then the third of the fourth criteria is, do we have adequate and appropriate facilities designed for the proper operation of this? And then the last criteria is, do we comply with the regs? So, that's basically it for the four criteria for ZBA.
Now, how do you determine how you met that criteria, like not, property values going down or anything? How do you determine that?
Well, that's stuff that has already been determined by the ZBA in our first meeting with them. And, so what's going on at this moment in time, that has been appealed. Okay, and we're going to court on that on November 13th in Manchester. But what we're asking for here has nothing to do with that previous approval. Okay, what they're objecting on the first approval was the height of the buildings.
Yeah, I realize we're considering what you say, the impact on wetlands.
Correct.
Alone.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So why we're here tonight, typically in other, I won't say typically, but in other communities, okay, these special exceptions are given out by the planning board. But in your ordinance, it says that these special exceptions are given out through the ZBA. So, but before we get to the ZBA, we have to have input from the Board of Health, input from the planning board, and input from your board. So, and why we're here tonight is to talk about the project. We are gonna have some crossings, okay, which is pretty common in big projects. You'll have crossings. We gotta make sure that the crossings are in according to the state regulations. They're gonna be in accordance to what the alteration of terrain wants, what the DES wants. So we're gonna have to follow all of that criteria. But before we get to that stage, full blown, okay, we need to get to the next step in the approval process, is to get to the ZBA to get the special exceptions accepted. Because if they don't get accepted, then we maybe have to go back to the drawing board. We have to do something different, all right? But so that's why it's not a full-blown design here for you folks tonight. Okay, and it typically wouldn't be, all right? Because we're still not at a place as developers where we could say, this is it. Okay, so we're here tonight to kind of inform you about the project. It's for us to move to the next step to meet your ordinances. Okay, typically we would go, I don't want to use the word typically, but what we would do, we would end up ultimately with conservation, planning board, and do a full-blown, presentation. And at that point, if there were special exceptions, the planning board normally, or some would be the ones who would do that. But in your particular community, it's, you folks have to have a hearing with us and then, give recommendations or comments to the ZBA. And then we go to the ZBA, and then the ZBA determines if there's going to be special exceptions granted or not. All right, so that's why when you hear Kyle talking about all his science and all his things, those are all the stuff that we have to do. But it's not ready for it quite yet. Okay, drainage calculations are already on board. We are dealing with DOT for the transportation. We're dealing with everybody we have to deal with, but we're waiting to make sure we got our special exceptions. So we know that this is what we're really doing. Okay, so it's kind of like a little bit of the cart before the horse, I think, a little bit.
With a wetland
Okay.
application, you're gonna receive in another round, a real wetland application that gets filed, copies get filed with the town as well as DES. And then the DES turns to this Conservation Commission for the input and review of that detailed wetland impact package, which that would be the full design, everything. Drainage calculations, the details, everything. You guys are gonna see that and have jurisdictional input to the state for that. But as Steve mentioned, we can't even get to that step because the ordinance says that we need special exceptions. Usually, as Steve mentioned, there's special permit with the planning board versus the special exception from the ZBA. But that's fine. Every town is a little different, and
Yeah. Right.
we honor that, obviously honor that process and follow through with the process.
Now, does DES that now, like, we were required to be notified this 20 days in advance. Would the next step will you be notified in time to, be able to address it if we want?
Yes, you have, with, the state rules, when you make a wetland application, which is, they review it to make sure it's complete and with all the details. But you get notified, and I think there's at least a month, maybe two, of time period that clicks by that any conservation commission would have review, and access to all of that. And the state, they actually wait for your review. There's a time frame. I can't remember exactly what the days are.
3 days.
Yeah, there's a,
Conservation Commission would have to file a notice to intervene.
right,
At that point, the Wetland Bureau would cease any evaluation of the project. And the Conservation Commission is then given 40 days to submit their review and
Right.
complaints.
that's correct.
40.
Yeah, so there's a whole process with that. We're not there yet, but that would be the official wetland impact, you know, with all the details of everything, all the site design done and all the drainage calculations. This is, we're not even allowed to go to file that yet, because we need to do the special exception with ZBA with your input. It's sort of like a step fashion. The town would basically say that we didn't follow zoning. So we have to go through this process. And the first process is the plans, identifying those areas. And we have grading and all that done. And we do have, sewer alignments and drainage and water, electric shown here, the ponds, the access ways.
So at this time, you can't be sure how many crossings you would have.
Yeah, we're pretty sure. I mean, we know that there's going to be 2 crossings for the main access road to get to the developable portions of the site. And then we also have these fingers that are going to be impacted. And we know where those fingers are. We delineated them, we surveyed them. And we know the design of how that would be impacted. So we show those. And they're all gentle slopes, 2-to-1 slopes. Some are 1.5 to 1. Some are 3 to 1 inside ponds, but those are all annotated on the plans.
Why don't we drag up the road?
Well,
You know, it might be easier, if we go to, grading plan and utility plan A, okay? That'll be, this page here. All right,
so if you drive up the road, the main access road,
yeah. So what's happening here, right? You have this page here?
Oh, I didn't get better.
What are you on?
Well, where I am,
grading and utility plans.
it's gonna be, the cover sheet. So you have 1, 2, 3, the 4th page. Okay, and then the bottom right.
Point of information, can that be projected?
Not sure, but
No, I don't think so.
I don't have any access to email on here.
but the first thing you have is on this project, we just have a road and the slopes, and there's a big pond in the front of the project. So we have a big pond in front of the project.
It's gotta be right here.
Yeah.
See right here?
And
That'll be that pond at the bottom.
Ours looks a little different, this guy right here.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think yours is just a smaller, some reason someone copied that, it's smaller, but these are bigger if you want to see them. But there's a pond that,
What page?
Lower right-hand side, it says grading and utility plan A.
Oh, you know what they did? They copied both sides of yours.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
Here.
what,
these are easy.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the same information. It's just a little bit bigger to see. It's the same plan. If you want to, I think I have one left.
Side you go.
We'll take it.
Okay,
Yeah, Shirley and I are fair.
thank you. So this is it, and this is, you're driving up here, and this is that first one. Okay, if you could share that.
I'll share.
Yeah, here we go.
Thanks.
That's the one, that's.
So the first wetland crossing actually isn't till you go way, way up the hill. There's no development other than the access road and drainage ponds, all the way up the hill to almost where you get, where you get to the water tower, the existing water tower. There's like this swale going around the backside of that water tower, traversing through the site. So there's a wetland impact there for the road. And we have a 4-foot, not all the design is complete yet, but we've designed it for a 4-foot open bottom box culvert for the road there, and wing walls to limit the, to reduce the wetland impact and utilities and everything. So that's the first wetland impact, and it says wetland impact number 1.
Mhm.
Then you go to the next page.
Yeah.
Grading utility plan B, and that's the continuation of the sheets, and you'll see wetland impact 2. That's for another driveway that helps us get to the townhouses and also gets us to the water tower. With a,
That here?
yeah, so that's wetland impact number 2.
Mhm.
Then there are no other wetland impacts associated with the townhouses.
Is there a pond?
Oh, yeah, there's lots of ponds. We wanted to put in lots of ponds and they're probably, yeah.
I just think visually for someone who doesn't read these every day. it's-
Oh, yeah.
it's-
So the ponds, if you look, you see like
Yes.
these circles like this, and then here, and then here. Those are ponds.
So it just comes off the roof and comes out.
It comes up the slope, the road, everywhere. This will catch them.
So everything we have in this project has the ponds, all the drainage from our any of our development goes into a pond, basically, after it gets treated.
I see on the first page.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, that's blue color for you, right?
Those are ponds, right? 1,
Right.
2,
Yeah.
3, 4,
Correct.
5 of them?
yeah,
Because
there's a
that's
series.
these
yeah, that's
right
right.
here, 1,
Yeah.
2, there's 3 here, the
Yeah.
first 3,
And then there's 2.
and then the next page, yeah, there'll be some
Yeah.
more.
And so
Is all the land around the development going to be developed, in other words, common land, so that it can't be altered after?
there will be a lot of common land, which we could put into open space, and we can do that with conservation easements, or however the town, usually a conservation commission would have input for that and say, oh, we want the land, or we want an easement, we want conservation protection. The state likes to see that as well. We fully expect to be able to do that on this project.
Other than
Yeah.
the buildings that we propose in the ponds we need to build to support all the drainage, there'll be no other development, no other disturbances. It'll just all grow in naturally.
And then those areas can be protected in a number of ways, as
Okay.
you know.
Well,
Yeah.
further up the street. So one of the pieces of feedback I've received over the years, following the clear cut was that a lot of those properties found that they were more wet, and that is obviously because trees absorb a certain amount of water. And so some of those parties along there felt they had more water in their property. I understand that. Those are coming from those fingers, I think, that are.
Yes.
Will you be catching some of that?
Yes.
Yes,
That's.
oh, yeah, and we've already
That's the
calculated that
purpose.
I'll
water.
help the neighborhood.
That's the
Of course
purpose.
it will.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause we're gonna catch that water.
And that's the purpose of that. There's nothing like having a real pond that's with berms around it and everything and gentle slope. Yeah, right. And all of that area that was clear cut, that we're not putting a driveway or a building on, is going to be allowed to regrow and grow. And, there's ways we can do that to supplement that and to make sure that, the plantings and the species are right and everything. So that can grow in, and all our slopes, all our side slopes off the driveways and roads, all those slopes will not be lawn. They're gonna be all naturalized.
Sorry, the blower.
Right.
I'm trying to talk louder because I'm hard of hearing myself.
When we turn it down, it goes off, but maybe that's their prices.
So as you come up the more sheets, we come up to a roundabout, which is really acting as a cul-de-sac as well, that the fire department was looking for. And there's the first finger.
Oh, you don't have the page either, do you?
This-
You're on two-sided also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
Okay,
there's one right.
Oh, I don't have any more.
In front of you, this,
1, 2,
this one.
It'll say grading utility plan C,
C.
Yeah, Grand Utility Plan C has the
okay?
impact number 3. Now that's a side slope to the cul-de-sac. That's for access. And that cul-de-sac is positioned so that, we can minimize cut and fill and actually equalize. The project is equalized and balanced for cut and fill. So that impact is a slope, and that'll be fully vegetated when it's done. Right now, it's a clear cut with a bunch of branches and logs sitting there. That'll all be restored, the slopes will be put in and all
This
revegetated.
area right here.
Recently, Claire?
I think a number of years ago was
Yeah, I'm not sure, I don't know.
in certain
It's
areas.
been a, I really don't know.
These things go back.
Yeah, and they do. And so that's a typical,
Roughly 4 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe?
so that's a typical, what we call the finger impact on the side of the slope that would be revegetated. And then what do we have next? Oh, there's a pond. And you know why we put ponds in. So, and that typically you see a pond by DES standards have to have a 3-to-1 slope where the water is. And then a 8 to 10 foot berm and then 3-to-1 slopes. We could do 2-to-1 or 1.5-to-1 outside of ponds, but when you have a drainage pond that's acting like a real pond and doing its work and treatment and containment and all of that, they want to see 3-to-1 slopes, and we meet all of that criteria.
Will
So-
these ponds all be natural bottoms, not
Yes.
concrete? So-
All these ponds are natural bottoms, they're all natural, you know, we want the cattails to grow in there and everything else. They're designed for that. They're not, an urban looking pond. They would look like a duck pond. And then as we go up the street, the sheet, you can see the biggest finger there of impact, and then getting the access way down to Maple Street and the sewer. So all those fingers would be revegetated. So in order to, try to explain a little bit of this further, and Rob asked us to, provide a little bit more information. So if you go to the next sheet, you can see that those are where the fingers are.
Which letter are you on? Sorry.
You go to sheet D is in Delta. So those,
This is gonna be grading plan, utility plan
Yeah.
D.
so none of those buildings are within 50 feet of the wetlands, even if they're going to be impacted, and there's no formal parking spaces that are on top of wetlands. That's an important part, and we made sure that with the town that we've got their interpretation and we're following that exactly. So,
Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Now, I got questions.
So these are for, right?
Okay, but these fingers, these are weeping right now, right?
yes, those are.
So what we're
weeping-
doing by coming into these areas, we're trying to capture that water and control it and get it into the pond areas. That's what we're
Right.
doing. And that's what's gonna help us with the downslope side. Cause right now they got that water's coming down that slope onto those other properties. And we're trying to minimize that. And so from that point up, we're trying to capture that water into these ponds.
So we did,
Okay, we see how this finger here, there's a pond right there. This finger here, pond. That
So
finger
the
there,
size of
pond.
the ponds, are they determined to be able to handle, let's say, 100-year flood
That's,
type?
Okay, the design would be that.
do they have
Is
any?
that 100-year flood up here, Carl, or 50-year?
well, they have design standards, then we have to use what they call an extreme storm event now. They make us do that, because they're more frequent and more flashy, especially around here, you know that.
Right.
So,
Overflow and. or-
yeah, those ponds are designed to different storm events. We're required to do the 2-year storm event all the way through, on hydraulics, the 100. And, for treatment purposes, as you know, the 2-year storm event is a big one because, that's where the first flush is off, pavements and stuff. So they really want to make sure that 2-year event gets captured and fully treated. And then any other bigger events, we need to make sure we volumetrically capture that as well and not let it go. And then, well, we can let it go, obviously, but at no higher rate than what's out there now. So they make us calculate all that, show that, and demonstrate it,
Who does?
the state.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll take public questions and comments when they're through.
Yeah, I'm almost done.
Dancing around the question I'm
No.
going to ask.
Oh, what
was the
question?
Two-part question. The first question is, what's the gain in elevation?
Yeah,
You're
We
waiting
said
until
we're-
the end of public.
We need to wait until the public can ask.
Yeah, okay, we're almost there. So the rest of the sheets are those fingers. And then you can see the emergency access road coming up from the bottom, and that has the sewer in it too. So that's why we provided this extra sheet that Rob asked us to show what the distances are from those fingers to the houses, and they vary, obviously, along Maple Street. You saw those pictures. They're over 600 feet. And then, this was,
That would be,
we gave you a supplement little packet.
this gotta be this sheet.
Rob asked us to make sure we
I think it's that one
identified
you got down there. And it might
what,
be, have it? Yeah, that one.
Thank you.
And there's more clear cut there that's off our property as well as someone else's property, but that they're over 600 feet. And we, we intercept that area and we put it into our own ponds. So that's downhill of our development. So we do that, we intercept and put these ponds in then. Now, this sheet also shows a section and it shows balance cuts and fills, and then there's a blow up of that section down in the lower left portion of that sheet. And the lower left portion of that sheet shows a cross section of what you would see if you were like, cut the site through and looking at the site at the high side to the left and going down to the bottom. And it shows the different elements of what we're doing. So if you go through that section, it's all about what's allowed in the special exception. There's building access drives, there's walkways, there's more access drives in between the buildings for the garages. There's utilities, there's water, electric, drainage. There's possible underground drainage treatment systems that we have in Phil. That's where they belong. We have benching of the slopes and naturalized of those. We have ponds and impoundment treatment areas as you walk down that section. We have the emergency access drive, which comes up at a percent slope that the fire department wanted, and it goes up the side of the hill where the clear cut is. So all of it, and then we have the sewer underneath that. So that's sort of a section. It tells a story of the special exceptions that are really basically on this project. It's really for access and utilities, water impoundments, treatment, sewer, that type of thing. The total difference in elevation from Maple Street up to the back, to where these wetland impacts are, is about 150 feet, depends on where you are. That's all been surveyed and everything. That just wanted to answer that
No, that
question.
wasn't my question. Oh, wait.
Okay, but I thought I heard that, what's the total elevation differential? But it is about 150 feet. It varies depending on where you are on the site, on that. So that's basically it in a nutshell. And we'd be happy to provide, answer any questions you have or provide additional information or.
I have a question.
Can we do the board first, though?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It makes more sense to go around the table, not everybody.
Anyone?
No, I'm just concerned about the surrounding property being protected, but I think you answered that question, that there'll be variances put in or some kind of rules that you can't do certain things to alter the surrounding territory.
That's correct. Once we put this development in and on the plans, there will typically a town or the state would want to see some kind of protective device. And that is protection of, whether it's a deed or an easement deed or a conservation protection deed. And you guys would review that deed and you'd review where those lines go on the plan. And basically we usually do right off the driveways or at the edge of a driveway. If it's naturalized, the conservation easement starts right there. And, we're allowed to have, basic maintenance and everything, but usually we put everything that we can in that protective conservation easement. And you would have quite a bit of acreage, on the balance of this project that, we're not touching, and that would go into the protective conservation. It'd probably be a conservation easement, and there's standard language for that.
Yeah, and that property that you're visualizing belongs to this project, so you have control over it.
Correct.
Right, so anything you see here, so this project, you see this, here's the summary.
Sure.
And then we have, the access drives and the buildings and parking and everything. And then the property, you probably can't see this from here, but you see like a purple line all the way around. So anything other than what you see here,
Okay.
the green that we colored is actually mostly or almost all revegetated, naturalized areas. So the open space or the conservation areas can go through the ponds and everything if you want, as long as we have access to that to maintain them. Usually we design them so that they operate like a duck pond and, you clean them out once in a while in terms of the orifices, but you just leave all the natural vegetated matter that goes in there. You leave all that. You want that actually. It provides better ambiance and treatment. But the balance of that site would all be in a conservation type of easement.
So Kyle, on this cover sheet, from these trailers of this house to where we're gonna be up here at this greenhead. See what I'm talking about? You see these right here?
Yeah.
And to this point here, do you know the distance of that from
Yeah,
there?
they're all over 600 feet.
Yeah, so that's what this page is telling you, that from our work, where we are, which on this paper here, I'm upside down now. So from right like here to the backs of these right here, all right, this page tells you, all right, the distances. All right, so you'll see, if you look at the bottom here, see this is a finger here, a finger here, a finger there, and it gives a distance from that work to that house.
Okay,
Okay, so like, for example, we got one at 646 feet. We got another one that's 662 feet, but there's a little shed or something in the backyard that's like 560 feet. And then for the next one down, it was 611 feet. So we're a substantial distance from their structures.
Now, the emergency access road you're saying is following a current.
Yeah, there's an
log
easement
or
up there for
something?
that,
Or what,
just to our lot line, then it's on our lot.
Right, just to
Right.
the lot line. So currently it's a dirt road.
There's,
Uh,
it's like a logging, they drag the logs out there onto Maple
Okay.
Street and they sort of like put in a crushed stone bed for the mud and everything. And that's.
So on
there.
Maple, on this page here,
Mhm.
it's this little piece right here. And
Okay,
then after that, it's on our site.
that's on your side.
Then,
Oh,
then
now I
the
understand.
new act, the emergency access drive would come
All
up,
right.
like biased up the hill, diagonally up the hill.
And this is Route 4.
Yes, the roof.
Oh, yeah, I saw that, right. I just thought it might have continued all the way up for the new
No,
development.
the easement is only across this piece.
Okay,
And then once we're on our property, there's no easement required. That's us. Right.
it is you, but there's not there's nothing.
There is nothing.
existing. There's nothing in there now. Okay,
They might have dragged logs at one time, like an old,
right, okay.
you know, but there's no defined road.
About 300 feet or so.
Yeah, this is what
There's a
this is.
zone line there as well.
And then the other benefit to this roadway, we're coming in off of Route 4. And so this back access is gonna be strictly emergency access.
It would be gated.
Or people, you know, maybe living here that wanna go walk to downtown or wherever they wanna walk to, you can go that way also. So all of our traffic is gonna be forced out to Route 4.
Exactly about where is that road?
It's on the left side of your sheet, right where
I
your
know
pen
where
is
it
pointing.
is, but I mean across the location, what other buildings are?
It's the water tower.
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah,
right,
so.
right after water
yeah,
tower.
So right, this little circle right here,
Mhm.
see this right here?
Mhm.
That's the water tower. So,
Yeah, but I mean down by the road, where does it fit on 4?
You had that, sir.
Yes, this is,
That's what I wondered. Right by the roller skating rink?
it's
on that
not
one.
quite directly across, but it's, so the roller skating rink is here. And
Yeah.
it's slightly to the right if you were facing the roller.
Was that,
So it's right on the
You can
hill.
look on.
I'm gonna say,
Let's say we have this break. I'm too short, you guys. I'm like,
And what do you use to cross the wetlands?
use a flag as a point.
On the road, what will be
Just kidding.
used?
is it a culvert or a box culvert or?
No.
There's a system that goes across our property and that near the water tank that's there. That system would have a 4-foot wide natural bottom, open bottom slope box. We don't,
That would be right
yeah,
here.
we don't need it for hydraulics. It's
Here's
just
the
for
water tank.
wildlife and things.
That crossing Carl's talking about is right here.
Right.
Yeah, so
If this is Route 4. Well, there's another one up here.
the other crossings would be actually the ponds, intercepted by ponds, would be building ponds to retain all, you know, the water and everything. So those fingers, you see the fingers, they basically have, other than those two crossings with the open bottom boxes, the fingers are really, surrounded by ponds. And there's cross culverts interconnecting all these ponds as well, but, in between, every finger is a little different, but, basically, benched fill, and those fills would be fully vegetated, naturalized, and ponds.
So anytime you see these dark lines,
Yes,
that's the finger.
yes.
Yes,
And then, you know, you can see a picture of those with a photograph that we provided today. You could see the hillside, that the fingers were on this hillside right here.
I think, in terms of goodwill for the neighborhood, getting those ponds into place will be very helpful. It will also be very helpful for the town. I really appreciate that because we have a lot of water on Maple Street that's been coming off. It's hard for the neighbors and it's obviously hard for us to control. So, and then in terms of just runoff and sediments, this board is obviously with the stormwater events that have happened here in Enfield in particular, we've had some pretty serious ones. They've been very expensive. We've had 2 significant FEMA claims. I don't think we want to see that happen to you guys or anybody in town, right? None of us want to do this. So I really can appreciate that. I'm sure you're familiar with Soak Up the Rain, and we've talked a lot of a committee about implementing some of these rain gardens. And, you know, basically it's a pond. It uses natural vegetation, but it uses local vegetation.
Right, the Soak Up the Rain program is a great program, especially for the lakes, and we do a lot of that and, you know, down where we live as well. And, especially for the smaller, you know, even a house, you know, putting the Soak Up the Rain criteria, the fact sheet, the specs on that are perfect. This is a bigger project, but we use the same type of, if you go through the Soak Up the Rain fact sheets and all the specs on there, we use the same type of plantings, the same type of approach, but it's just a bigger scale.
That makes sense.
Now, do you have any projects that are similar to this that are,
Done a lot of apartment projects, a lot of townhouse projects. We've done, that's a similar type of project. I mean, we also have big industrial, and we have, you know, we had,
Well, I was looking at something, one that had to be put together similar to this, that you had to.
It would be nice.
yeah, we did,
Like to see a finished one.
we did one at, Wallace Farm along the highway in Londonderry. That's 240 units, and we actually did a master pond over there, to collect all the water. And there's nothing like having a real pond to do that. I mean, sometimes you don't have the luxury to put in a pond and you have to do other things, and we're gonna be doing that too. You know, the storm techs and the recharge and the pre-treatments and all of that will have to be done anyhow. So, but you know, we have a number of projects with ponds in them but that's just one type of BMP. You go through the, you know, stormwater manual, there's, you know, 50 different things, and we're gonna be doing all of those. Where we have some seepage, we could actually create stormwater pond, wetland ponds. We're gonna be doing some forebay areas as well, that we go into these ponds. We're gonna be doing a lot of roof recharge in our fill areas, but all of that under drains and all connects into the ponds anyhow, so we're not letting anything go unmitigated. We can't, we're not allowed to do that. And you know, we've all seen projects that, you know, are situations that, you know, it's scary. And so we over designed all these things. So everywhere where we could, we put a pond in, whether we thought we needed it or not. And Steve's like, what the hell are you doing? You're putting these ponds in. It doesn't matter. We really need to show it when we do, and then we work backwards from that. And a lot of times when we end up with a final design, like we did a nice facility for Life is Good. If you've probably heard the name Life is Good.
Mhm.
So the corporate office, they stayed in New Hampshire. We got them to fit at a corporate office, and we did some really nice ponds out there for them. And they liked that a lot. Obviously, Life is Good. They liked all that naturalization stuff, and that was like in an urban area. But we over designed that project and worked backwards, so that we did the same thing here. We over designed the ponds. You know, our chief engineer in our office is like, Doug, he's like, why are you putting that pond there? You don't even need it. You're not gonna need all that. And I'm like, well, because it's the right thing to do. We can put the ponds in anyhow, in between the emergency access road and our development. Why not? Why not optimize those, maximize those with the 3-to-1 slopes and use those bodies to our benefit? And it'll help everybody. We know that there's seepage coming off the slope onto Maple Street. We know that already. And it's a class C or better or worse soil, actually. So we know that that's the right thing to do. So sometimes if we're in design and we don't need it, and you know, we do less. And the Wetland Bureau is gonna ask us, they're gonna say, make sure that you reduce your wetland impacts if you can and improve it to us with the design. Do you really need that area over there? And, so we included all of it for now. And then we work backwards. And if we don't need it, we'll pull it back.
How big are these ponds? Like this guy right here?
Yeah.
Any idea of the size of it? 20 feet long, 40 feet?
Oh, no, they're big, they're big.
Well, what is what is the footprint on these, 20 feet?
You have a scale.
I think if you go to this page here, grading plan B, okay?
That's long.
Okay, you see the ponds here? To give you a little bit of perspective, all right, these units, each square box is 20 feet,
Okay.
all right?
Okay.
It might be 22, but I think it's 20 feet, okay? So if you look at the pond down below here,
Mhm.
see how
Yeah,
so you can kind of get a perspective of
that pond,
how big that
yeah,
pond is.
just that pond is 200 feet long by,
Yeah.
Right.
the floor of the
Okay.
pond is at least
And
20
then,
feet
then you
wide,
could
but-
do the likewise with these other ponds.
Yeah, you have a scale on all the drawings.
Yeah,
So we
just to give you,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just-
Oh,
yeah, just to give you an idea, these boxes they might be 22, but I think they're 20 feet. All right, so every 5 is 100, and you can look at the pond below it and kind of
Yeah.
get a perspective of what it is.
Yeah,
You have a question, Jim?
well, I like your question about, is there another project that we can view that's done?
Well, I did a project, it's not in New Hampshire, but it's on the New Hampshire line in the town of City of Haverhill, and it's right on the Plastow line. And that project, it was a 102 units. It was 72 townhouses, a 30-unit garden style building. I had 6 crossings, 2 major crossings. And in there, that's one you could see that's really, it's been up now for, it's about 10 to maybe 15 years old now. So you get to see what it looks like naturally vegetated. All right, and what the ponds filled in like, and it's really a beautiful thing. The crossings, one of the wetland areas that we had to build a pond, we had to put in, because of, some of the reptiles that live in the area, we had to put in we had to pull stumps and put them in upside down. We had to do certain things to fit with the Conservation Commission in Haverhill in the state. And all of that has been done. And when it got finished, some of the colleges are bringing their students to this project and showing them those wetland areas that we had rebuilt for, how you have to do compensatory, not the storage, what's when you refill it in?
Compensatory mitigation.
No, yeah, mitigation. So when you disturb wetland area, you have to put it back.
Mhm.
And so colleges were bringing their students there to show them how we did it there and how it naturally grew in. And so that's a good one to see.
I really love.
That's a real, and I'll meet you there.
Which one is that one?
That's Fairway Oaks. And that's right on Route 108. And it's right on the Haverhill Plastow line,
Maybe we could get Rob to set something up.
and if you want, I can walk you through that whole site and just describe to you. And I'll tell you a funny story about it. When the first crossing, we had to put in these temporary dikes, okay? And to hold this pond back, to put this major crossing in, all right? And we were getting a lot of rains, okay? And it was a pain in the neck, okay? So one day we come down there in the morning, okay? And on the side where we had this temporary dike built, okay, there was water coming out. There was a beaver working on that corner, okay? And he was putting his sticks and he was stopping the water too. He was trying to hold the water as well. Well, look at this. I have that video somewhere of the beaver working on that. Cause he's gonna have a heart attack when we pull this out. But that's one that, I think that has 6 crossings and 2 of them are major crossings. And you'll kind of get to see the work we did.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be a good one. Fairway Oaks. Okay.
Make arrangements to go.
Yeah, well, we could coordinate that with Rob.
Yeah.
It would be
Okay,
nice also in that to know, like you said, number of units, but how many people live there, how many people we would expect to live here,
yeah,
and any differences in terms of topography.
And anything,
Well, over the fairways, it's mostly, it's kind of a rolling,
Well, we
it's
can-
rolling. It's not up on a hill like this.
yeah, so, you know, there's some differences, just want to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's 102 units. Yeah, and I don't know how many,
This is
it's a 55 plus community. So there's probably, let's assume there's 2 people a unit.
Yeah. And
Right.
so Shirley, I have a question.
Yes,
So is our job to think about wetlands and only wetlands or environmental?
Only the wetland.
Only the
crossings
wetland.
there.
as far as,
Just the
because
crossing.
for this exception, there are other times
Gotcha.
that we
Okay.
think about other things.
Yeah.
But, for this, it's for wetlands.
Good. Okay, thank you. That'd be great.
Just
Yeah.
a numbers question. The whole parcel is 77 acres.
Yes.
What number of acres are the wetlands? Yeah,
The wetland impacts are, under 2 acres.
Was it like 1.6 or
1.6?
69,000 square feet?
69,000 square feet total, that's,
Yeah.
but where, most of that, the super majority of that 69,000 square feet is gonna actually gonna be mitigated, revegetated.
yeah.
And to naturalized slopes and
Mhm.
vegetation. The very, very small portion of that is actually, pavement.
Mhm.
But there's utilities and everything else in there, but almost all of it is gonna be revegetated.
And is there some process for revegetation that's appropriate for this area in terms of
Yeah.
species and
Yes,
variety?
so the UNH Stormwater Center and then DES, you know, they'll, our landscape architects in our office, they have different seed mixes. I'm sure you've heard of them before. You know, they got the Vermont farmhouse seed mix, and then they got the wet pond seed mix. They got the dry pond. There's all these different seed mixes to generate, because no seed, you know, is perfect. You know, you seed your lawn that has a mixture. It's like a blend. And usually the seeds that pop up first might be, you know, just to get things going. And then there's other ones that like it, you know, in your lawn and others that don't. But the seed mixes are usually a mixture. I can get you the information on that, but it's actually very juicy. Like you look at it's like a menu of plants that they put in there that make sure that it's naturalized quickly. And
Conservation mix.
That's.
they call it, yeah, there's a conservation mix. There's all these different mixes that, and they inspect those and they want to make sure this will have, you know, SWIP, the EPA SWIP permits on top of it as well, and inspection. And, there's certain limits on how much you can disturb without, you know, making sure that it's, viable and stabilized, they call it, with the vegetation. And then that starts maturing, and they inspect that to make sure that the vegetation is maturing, when it should be. And we don't put anything into it until it is proper, you know.
I just have a really brief, concise thing of what the conservation commissions in New Hampshire are charged with. It's protection of natural resources in our community. They play a critical role, the conservation commission play a critical role in evaluating and commenting on conservation plans and wetland permit applications, educating and informing town boards and the public. The conservation commissions, they're harder than ever to ensure New Hampshire remains a healthy place to live, work, and enjoy all the beautiful natural areas. And we are advisory only, we're not regulatory. But the DES takes, and other boards take our recommendations very seriously.
Right, and I'm glad that you have that manual,
Oh,
because that's the avoidance and minimization manual as well. So it steps you through, there's several chapters in there. They talk about different types of development, including, you know, subdivisions, industrial, multifamily. And they show examples in that manual. They'll show example of what you could have done with a property. Say it's 100 acres or 75 acres, and you could have put in a big subdivision, you know, and they usually don't like that. They'll have examples in that manual that'll show, you know, a typical, what we could have done with this project, with the subdivision, all the roads and everything else. And it pretty much wipes out everything. And then in that manual, they say, well, think it another way. If the zoning allows for multifamily, and this does, with the sewer and water, then put the density in, you know, one area and put it in conservation, you know, put the balance in conservation. They like to see that. So we're not fragmenting
The area, the land around it in conservation and the one that we're going to visit.
I'm not sure about the fairway it is, but,
Or Fairway, we did that as open space. Okay, so that down in Mass, what happened, we put it in as open space so that there'll be no, it's landowner in common and there's no development rights at all allowed in them areas. Cause that's a condominium, they own everything, but that has to remain open and undeveloped.
so usually that manual will show examples actually of development that could be done by right, but then, take another look, like put your density somewhere else and then leave everything else and then let that, naturalize. So that's sort of, following the manual, and DES takes that seriously. Matter of fact, we just did another project and DES asked us to step through the project with that manual, and we used the same graphics, the same everything on our project, and we showed them what we went through to get to that point with a superior layout that does give more open space.
Any other questions here?
No, I'm
Do you turn it over to the public?
Yeah, me too.
Sure, you also have a question online.
Oh, I do. Sorry, I didn't see that.
I think it's Dave Buffet.
Dave? Nice to see you. Dave, would you have a question?
I do, or actually more of a statement. There's a lot of complex information presented tonight rapidly. It seemed quite clear that it was difficult for members of the committee or commission to comprehend it all rapidly. And it's at least bordering on disrespectful not to be able to project it to so that those people in the audience in person and those of us remotely can see what you're even talking about. So I urge you not to make any to defer any decisions about comment or anything like this until there's some further discussion of this and present more accessible communication about this project. Thank you.
Thank,
I have a question. How are you going? I'm Dr. Gerald Tight. I was wondering how you're going to mitigate silting of those ponds, and what are you going to do when they silt up, and how you're going to clean them out if you've got cattails growing in?
Well, a lot of ponds that we design as wet ponds, we want the cattails in there. We actually pre-designed for them, and we want them in there because, as you know, the vegetated matter, that square footage of area in the pond of vegetated matter really helps on the absorption of nutrients and everything. So these types of ponds, we actually invite them to grow in. There's other ponds, as you know, Doctor, that we design and implement on projects that we don't want vegetated matter in there, but these we do. The biggest item on these ponds is that there's a treatment train that we're required to follow. All the way from source flow, it could be a roof, it could be, a parking space. Could be a landscaped area, sidewalk, it doesn't matter. But all of that is required to have pretreatment.
What are you talking about pre-treatment?
So on pretreatment, we have to pretreat the water before it goes into a pond.
Okay, this is not getting to what I'm talking about. That's silting of those ponds. The washing of material into those ponds will occur no matter what you put around it. How are you going to clean the ponds out and keep that overflow from?
Yeah, so there's the majority of siltation that goes into ponds on developments like this is from the outboard side of the pond. It's coming from other sources. The pond itself will naturally silt up, and we invite that. We want it to do that. If they're wet ponds, we want them to contain water, and there's a certain certain depth of water we want to have. Usually it's at least 3 feet. And so we invite the pond to silt itself in, but we don't put silt into the pond from outside sources. So there's a couple things going on here. The pre-treatment that we use, the treatment train that we use from outside going water flow into the pond has to go through a series of pre-treatment devices that are all calculated and required by the AOT permits. So that means that there's no siltation going into the pond normally. During construction, that's a different matter. During construction, there's other means that we mitigate the siltation of anything entering a pond. But the beauty of a wet pond is you want that to have a bottom that is not inviting infiltration or exfiltration. So many ponds that we build do have, they're actually designed as infiltration ponds. We want the water to go through, and it's actually a treatment practice for the water to go through the bottom of the pond, the bed of the pond, and go into the groundwater. Here, these would be wet ponds primarily, and so we don't care. We're not gonna base our design calculations on any exfiltration credits at all. And that's the beauty of, the wet ponds that we put here. So there's, in answer to your question on the siltation of a pond, I think I'm not sure exactly where you're going with that, but we have a treatment train to avoid any siltation going into the pond.
How do you clean out your treatment train then?
If I'll give you an example. Every, there's catch basins that have, deep sumps, and they have other, you can put pillows in there. There's so many different brands of things you can put into a catch basin to take the sedimentation and any other floatables away. Usually you want to intercept the treatment at the point source and not wait and treat a big volume of water that's mixed in with everything else.
I'm asking you how you're gonna do that. I know what you're trying to say, but
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that. I want to hear how you're gonna actually keep those ponds from silting up, and if you have a
Okay.
method to catch that silt,
I'm not sure.
how you're gonna clean those out, and will that be on your head or on the city's head?
All of these are privately owned, so it's all privately maintained. There's a SWIP that goes on top of that for construction, insurance. It's a site plan, so it'll be a violation of a site plan approval, which could go to court if they're not, maintaining these. The way we design them, there's not a lot of siltation that goes into this, only by design, because we have several different elements of BMP practices that avoid the siltation before it even gets to the pond. And usually a natural occurring pond, that's a wet pond, as you know, would naturally create an eco environment that does have silt in it, does have a bed, does have vegetative matter, does have all of that. It goes aerobic and anaerobic and everything. The critters are in there. And that we want that. But there are standards that we have to follow that be in our designs details that say, well, if it's something silts up, you have to clean it out. There's ways to clean it out. I'll give you one example of a BMP. If we use the StormTech system, that's a infiltration pipes, chambers, crushed stone, filter fabric. You can't just put drainage into one of those systems. It has to actually go through an intercept system before it gets to there. So there's an isolator row on those. So there's I can go on and on. I love this stuff. So I mean, if we're using 20 different types of technologies, some are natural, some are more active, and I'd love to talk about all of them, because we would actually put in our toolbox on this particular site any number of, say 20 different technologies and implementation on this site to maintain that drainage viability.
And is it the property owner's responsibility to keep those?
The property owner is legally responsible to maintain everything. So this is not a subdivision with town roads and the town has to maintain everything. We got all this highfalutin stuff in the town, like, how are we gonna maintain that, But usually we actually design and implement stuff that doesn't need a lot of attention.
So the roads are maintained by the property owner.
All the roads, all the drive,
Everything.
everything, the entire property would be maintained by the property owner. The town won't have any maintenance responsibility whatsoever on any of it.
How many bedrooms are each of those units going to have?
The townhouses will have 2 to 3 bedrooms. And in the apartment building, they're typically 2 and 1 bedrooms in some studios.
This is right.
So that means that if you've got the 300 or 222 apartments and 20 or 80 homes, you've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 160 or 260 people living there, correct?
Or more.
It could be possible, yeah.
Talking
So
about 400.
that's gonna take a lot of cars going in and out on 4. You know how many cars go by there every day?
Well, I think these questions are questions for like at the planning board
Yeah.
level.
We've got
I think for where we're at here tonight for conservation.
And I'm asking you these questions as a member of the citizenry of Enfield. I'm not representing them.
We have other meetings though that cover these topics. This meeting is specific.
But I want to talk to the men who are building it to see
Then
what.
do it on your own time.
I'm right, fine. You stay after this.
No, I don't think they should have to. They came to cover wetlands with the Conservation Commission. There have been many, many meetings with these folks. And I think it's disrespectful to this board to deviate from conservation because you have a
That
personal
is
interest in it.
conservation.
No, it's not.
Well, I could say that, you know, I've worked with Stephen for a number of years and we have an open door, open book policy. We work with different committees. If a committee is charged with, you know, the wetland review, then we focus on the wetland review. I'd be happy to talk about traffic and anything else. I'll spend days with you if you want. I don't care. We're passionate about what we do. We do high quality work. But the purpose of this meeting right now tonight, you know, is what this committee tells us. And
the impact on wetlands.
but if you want to talk about anything else, you know, the benefit to the medical community or the educational or the tax base, that's all fine. There's a different venues for that, but we'd be happy to talk to you about any of that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Perhaps? So thank you for the presentation. It was a little difficult to follow. I kind of agree with David.
Well, if I could just say, that tonight really wasn't for us to give a regular presentation to the planning board of the Conservation Commission for the whole project. Tonight was to kind of give them an introduction, what we're doing,
Yeah.
where we're headed.
Yeah.
These are some of the concerns that we think that you should have. And this is the areas we're working in. There'll be a time later when we will come probably back with a regular presentation with, with planning board, will be a full-blown, like, you know, with, you know, PowerPoints, video, everything. But tonight, it was our understanding, okay, that this meeting was not for that. This meeting was like a get to know you type meeting, to fill you in on the project, to kind of get you up to speed of the project, get you in the game to figure it all out. And that's what tonight's about.
It's focused
We
on
have,
wetland.
exactly, and we still have a long way to go, okay, before this project is approved.
So my point was, it was difficult for us as members of the public. Who are-
Oh, yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, I do.
Follow the presentation.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah, I clearly understand that.
So I'm looking at image one here. Is this what Kate was referring to? And you guys agreed the seepage is coming down here?
Those are the fingers.
There's one picture.
Right.
Yeah, we just wanted to give you that.
So now looking at this picture, and I see the ponds up here.
Yeah.
And the fingers would be down here, correct?
No, actually, let me take a look, yeah.
There's more fonts.
You had the finger, see the ball ponds?
Yeah. Part of it, or get organized.
Okay.
So there's more points in those.
All this is, all, see these plans, they're to pick up the all this pavement.
Any of those green areas.
Got it.
To pick up all that.
Yeah. you can see those.
So what I
There's impressions within the green.
Yeah.
So what I heard,
You can see we have, there's a finger through here. There's a finger through here. So you know, we gotta look, you know, the bottom line. Check it, it's tough to see.
so what I heard from some people, including our select board members, was that we're getting significant water on Maple Street as a result of the clear cut in these fingers, correct?
Well,
4 years ago.
Yeah, there's always been significant water
Yeah,
on Maple Street, but the clear cutting probably
exactly.
didn't help it.
Okay. So my question is, if the fingers are here, as was just pointed out,
They're here.
Oh, okay, let him know that. That's his question.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
you guys want to try to stick to the.
No, I'm trying to get to your answer. Because there are ponds up here, but they're not colored.
So if the fingers are here, Maple Street is here, and the seepage is resulting in water on Maple Street. I don't see any ponds below the fingers. How are the ponds going to help our residents on Maple Street?
The ponds are designed to intercept our development. what we're doing above the ponds. And, those are, intercept those, but
I could have sworn what I heard about 40 minutes ago was the result of the work that you're doing, that you left water on Maple Street.
So this is Maple Street here, right here, and these are ponds. So the complaints that I have heard in particular, so I grew up here. And I went skating in people's front yards on Maple Street. So I can tell you the water is not all new, right? But that being said, people have had exacerbated issues with it. So like this pond here is above Maple Street, which
Yeah.
was one of the complaint areas.
Yeah, so if we look at the emergency access road, I see a number of fingers to the right of the emergency access road. Am I correct?
yeah, most of that area is a wet slope.
Okay,
Yeah.
and this picture here,
That's a wet slope.
that's a wet slope. And so this is all running down here. So how are your ponds to the left of the access road?
This picture here. You see this place cut right here?
Yeah,
That's this picture. See the tree line right here? From here down, see these houses?
yeah.
That's right here.
These, so when you were over here just a minute ago, did you show me these black lines?
Yeah, I'm looking. I got one in red. Okay, here's a red line.
Yeah,
Okay. So this is just a cut of it. So there's red lines. here.
okay, so perfect. These red
Yeah,
lines
easy.
are, these red lines are fingers.
Here's the thing.
Are you placing any ponds below the fingers?
You do that now?
We have some ponds in between the fingers, but we can't put in more ponds in the fingers that are wetlands that are not on our property. And that's the property line. And then this is a wetland in here, so.
So you've got buildings that are above the fingers that have non-permeable roofs and non-permeable drive down parkings. And then you have fingers below that.
And we have ponds in between all. These are all ponds in here. too. These are all ponds in here. All the green areas are ponds right through here. Not just, these are the bigger ones that,
But where you're pointing to is above the fingers. So if I got fingers and I've got seepage
so,
on the fingers.
well, we know that water flows downhill, right? So
Yeah.
if we have a development, we're gonna intercept the development with a pond before it goes any further. And if there's well below that, we need to make sure we intercept the water right at the edge of our development.
See right here?
Yeah.
There is. On this page here, these are the apartment buildings.
Yeah.
It's all-
One more up here. Okay, see these fingers?
Yeah,
See these ponds?
I do.
Okay, see this pond here?
I do.
Okay, there's a pond here.
But is what you're pointing at now, is that here?
Yeah,
Or is that
okay,
here?
okay, I'll show you where it is. You see these two buildings?
Yeah.
That's these two buildings. See that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so when you see these fingers,
Yeah,
all right, so these fingers are picking up this pond. This finger's going into this pond. See, then it's connected by a pipe to this pond. This is connected by a pipe to this pond. It's a pond here. Let me go one more page.
so what I'm seeing here, you've got 6 ponds shown, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ponds shown.
No, there's more.
You're not showing all the ponds on
Correct,
this.
correct. So, and this is the last building? Yeah.
They're all shown on
Okay.
that plan.
You see this finger here?
Yeah.
Okay. See how this is sloping? This is intercepting this water and bring it to this pond, connect this, let me go back a page.
I think this is all. Because to me, this photography is.
Connected to this
Well,
pond,
one in.
connected to that pond.
Right.
So, and you, right, I don't want to worry by the picture, but.
So I don't want to slow anything down anymore. So it looks like for future meetings,
Yeah,
you could explain that a little bit
yeah,
better.
probably.
Because I'm not seeing any ponds over here and I'm thinking.
Well, on the
I can see
on the front colored picture, you're absolutely right. But in the package, where the design is, there.
What page is that on?
All right, so you're gonna go, if you start with, this is sheet 7 of 11, grading and utility plan E.
Yeah, I'm gonna say E has some good
Okay.
ones. So.
And he does too also.
One can see the topography. So.
You understand what he's asking?
There.
Okay, let me, you probably should have done this like a full-blown meeting. like-
Well, you have to start somewhere.
So look at, see these are 2 apartment buildings, and there's one more, right?
This is our pre-meeting.
You see this finger? See that finger and that finger? Well, these fingers, there's a pond here, right? So this pond, well, and there's a pond here, there's a pond here. Okay, now let's go to this page here. Here's the last building. So if you look at it, like this, okay? What is a little bit, they didn't color this all the way, but there are fingers here.
Yeah, that's
There's
what's
fingers-
needed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something that certainly will be corrected. But, so now, you see these fingers here? That's this finger right here.
Mhm.
And the way this is sloped, this water is being picked up this way and goes into the pond, okay? So then, what happens is, let me turn the page.
This third picture might help.
Well, it doesn't show the ponds.
The ponds are
And
at the end of the,
See this finger?
ponds are at the
See
end.
the shape of that finger?
Yeah.
Okay, here's that finger right here.
Yep, yep.
And this is the last building. Well, look at right here. This is, water's directed to this pond. There's a pond here. See the pipe? You won't see, they didn't color it in here.
Okay.
And then when you come over to this page here, okay? This is right here. Okay, see this pipe? Then it gets connected to this pond, which is this finger. And then it gets connected to the next pond, which is in this finger. Okay, so there's a pond at every finger, okay, which is picking up the water. Yep, along here. That even.
Is there anything flowing here?
So the ponds are the catch. I don't know what's seeping below us.
Yeah.
So we're concentrated from our
That
constructed
can
up.
plan like
Okay,
that.
so whatever's flowing out of here is intercepted,
Kind of get.
put in these ponds. Okay, then it gets released slowly.
So some of that,
Well,
we're coming down here,
Of course, and some of that's gonna come off the hill,
yeah,
off the pavement, off the roofs.
but without these here,
It's coming anyway.
Probably
Yeah,
more
it's coming anyway.
then you'll be getting rid of
Does
what.
anyone else have a question
Correct.
that we need to let them?
Correct.
Um. Karen?
All those ponds. Right.
Chair okay, and I'm from Maple Street. Gentlemen, could you pass these along?
Oh.
And bear with me for a minute. We'll have some things to pass out. Can you shut those around the table, please?
Just one page?
Yes.
Okay.
Please pass it out.
Oh, I see, okay. One, please.
What did you do that thing?
I'll share with you.
You got one? Okay, I got it. Oh, good, so that's, you good?
Is there anybody else who needs one? Okay. So if you'll bear with me, I have speaking on the subject of wetlands and speaking on this, I've lived on this in Maple Street for 28 years, so I'm pretty familiar with what goes on there, what drains there, et cetera. And what I did is I did two things. I looked at what, you folks, the developers submitted to Rob Taylor in your application for a special exception. So Rob sent me a copy of that. So I read that. And then I also looked at the zoning regulations in Enfield for wetlands. Because we really haven't talked about that tonight. And that's somewhat of a concern to me, because as a resident of Enfield, we all have to follow the zoning regulations when we come before boards. And why are zoning regulations written? And I think wetlands are sensitive areas. We need wetlands for filtration of our water. We need water. Our climate is changing rapidly in a lot of ways. And we're gonna need water in the future even more, and clean water especially. So, and gentlemen, I'm sorry to this board, gentlemen, in your presentation, your application to Rob Taylor, you claim that these wetlands were low function, low value on your property. But I didn't see any factual substantiation for this claim, and that can be made at some future point. The waters from this wetland drain in various places all along the height of land. That's what we were just discussing. Really, what's happening on your map that I see is if you look where your purple line is, and you look at these trailers and you look where your wetland are, they're all draining towards these trailers. And I don't see a pond here to collect any of that water. It's happened, it's something below this second building that you have to put to catch some of that water that I see. And then what Linda Jones also pointed out to me, you're gonna have 6 townhouse units over here. That you have major wetlands over there as well that are gonna drain right into the back of those townhouses. There is so much water draining off of this property. I'm a little concerned also, in regulations having to do with the wetlands, you know, these wetlands drain down the hill, they drain across Maple Street. The trailers that you talked about, Kate, or the houses, Kate, that you talked about, that had a lot of water. What they've done is, I spoke to some people the other day to see how the drainage was working. They've put culverts underneath their driveways. So their drainage problems are getting better. But there again, they're very close on the edge of having water all around them. I think one of you people said you were worried about the neighbors and what was going to happen to the neighbors on Maple Street. But I'm concerned, I don't know enough about wetlands to know if you're going to keep water up on the hill and keep that water from draining down, what happens to water to the wetland as it filters water across Maple Street to marshes and wells? What happens? The water also drains. Bill Warren's property is sort of the flat, there's a big flat field all along behind Maple Street. And some of that is Bill Warren's property that drains into the Mascoma Lake. That is an area, that's a wildlife corridor back there. I regularly have bears and deer and geese and turkey cross through my yard on Maple Street. I live near the post office. They come off the mountain, down the hill, through that area. That marsh there provides them with cover. It provides them with water. And then they cross from Maple Street to Main Street. It's a huge wildlife corridor, and that's not being addressed at all. And so it's not a low function value of these wetlands. I think they're significant, and I think that really needs to be considered. Also, I see on what you've presented that you have about 9 little places where the wetlands are being impacted. Maybe you've changed it since you submitted it to Rob Taylor, because in your application to him, you said that there were wetland impacts 10 times.
Yes.
And now there's 9. If now there's 9 instead of 10, that's good. I'll be finished in just a minute, and thank you for your patience. You know, when I looked at Enfield zoning ordinance 406.1, wetland areas, C, permitted uses, page 39, quote unquote, from that, only for activities which will not alter the natural surface configuration by the addition of fill or by excavation or dredging, such as C. These are permitted uses for wetlands in Enfield zoning regulations, forestry, farming, wildlife and conservation areas, outdoor recreation, and water supply wells. My last point, Town of Enfield, New Hampshire zoning ordinance D, special exception. This is where a special exception would be granted. Page 40, accessory building or structures customarily incidental to permitted uses allowed by C that I just mentioned, forestry, recreation, conservation areas. Provided any such buildings are not used for occupancy purposes. So here we have a huge development, no offense, guys, but you have a very difficult piece of property to try to put so
Right.
many houses on.
Can I answer a quick?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that's my statement. Thank you.
Just probably just working backwards. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for this too. Just working backwards and I can, we can provide more of a thorough answer in writing if you'd like, but, the last one on, under ordinance D. We don't have any special building or accessory, structures, that section where it does not apply to what we're actually proposing. So, it says it's a special exception. We don't have any accessory buildings. We have primary buildings. So we don't have those. Now, if you go back, so it doesn't apply, but I can explain that further, but
But how is it, what's allowed are buildings that relate to that type of activity?
so there's,
It says non-occupied.
right, I can explain that. So when you go back to section C or your previous comment, in the ordinance, it says that you're allowed to do certain things in wetlands, and which do not alter the surface, and you don't need any, you don't need special exception. It's just allowed, with a permit. Now, if you do have some of that activity, you do need a special exception. That's what we filed for. We actually filed for a special exception. And it says, you're under the wrong section. You should be under section 406(1)D. And that's special exceptions for work in wetland areas. And they may be allowed by special exception for the following criteria 1, 2, and 3. One is roads, driveways, all the things that we talked about. And you need to have a special exception, which is the 4 criteria, A, B, C, D. And you're allowed to have water impoundments and ponds and everything. And I apologize, there are ponds all along through here on the downhill side of that development that are in green. We just, our landscape architect did not color all of them in blue. He should have done all of those in blue. They should have been all blue, not just green. But there's ponds intercepting everything on the downhill side of our development where it should be. So, our job on the drainage design is to not cut off all the water, but cut off the differential peak, pre and post flows. So those ponds do that, and they also have outlets, so they would, outlet the water as well, but at a metered rate, so that the pre and post development outflows are the same, they're equalized. So, and you're absolutely right, you don't want to dry up a wetland, you don't want to dry up down gradient resource areas at all, but we don't want to overindulge them either. So that is all, the state criteria does make us do that. So that the pre-design, you'll see the outlets. We actually show those on the plan as well. So, but we'd be happy to address, and thank you for these comments, and specifically,
Section that I should look at.
you should be looking at section, Article 4, 406, actually, Article 446, sensitive resource protection areas.
4406.
Yeah, and then 1 is wetland areas, section 1. And under that is section 406(1)D, D is in Delta. That's where the special exceptions are for work in wetlands that we're proposing.
And this comes from Enfield zoning regulations?
Yes, ma'am. And that is in sections 1 and 2.
So wait, 4406 sensitive areas,
It's
1
basic,
and 1D,
it's basically 406(1)D, and then there's 1, 2, and 3.
okay? I'll take a look at that, thank you. I wasn't aware
Now,
of that.
it actually subsection 3 does allow accessory buildings and structures with a special exception, but we don't have any proposed. We just have our 3 apartment buildings. And none of those are in the wetlands. None of those buildings are in the wetlands. None of those buildings are in the wetland setbacks. You have a setback of 50 feet. We don't have anything in that setback, because that would be another variance. But we're not asking for any variances. We're asking for a special exception under sections 1 and 2.
Thank you.
And I can clarify that too, but
My
that's,
understanding was you guys had moved some of the parking to avoid, specifically
Correct.
to avoid the wetlands to make it so you didn't need.
right.
to get another
Yeah,
special
Rob jurisdicted on that, and we asked him a lot of questions on it to make sure. So, he said, just make sure you do not have a parking space on top of a wetland, even if it's going to be permitted to be impacted.
Mhm.
So, but we have drive aisles and, utilities and ponds and everything, yeah. So, you know, and the other things we can address as well, you talked about functions and values, usually our wildlife report, done by, you know, Luke Hurley, who's a wetland scientist, he's also a soil scientist. He would develop a report that talks about functions and values of the different resource areas out there and on the wetlands. And, you know, I'm not a wetland scientist, so I'm not gonna start blabbing about that, but it is a fair question to ask about functions and values. We said they're low function and value where we're impacting them, but obviously that we look at the holistic thing, and, you know, there are functions and values of other resource areas that are important. We just need to make sure that the state looks for us to look at all that and address functions and values. But he would do that in his report, absolutely.
So this report is available or will be done?
It will be done, yes.
When will at that point? Yeah.
Well,
Well, first we have to determine, do we get the special exceptions? We have to get through that hurdle. Okay,
So-
and any of the design work that we're proposing or talking about tonight, all of that design work has to be actually submitted to the state. And the state has their regulations. We have to design it according to the town ordinance. It'll be with your input as well. Okay, so what we need to do is get to the point where the ZBA can approve or not approve these special exceptions.
Eric, you had something you wanted to contribute?
Well. I'm upset, hate about saying it was.
I don't think I'm gonna be upset if it's wetlands. I think it makes sense. I just don't think we're gonna retry every other hearing they've previously done before 9 o'clock.
It will be,
It's not gonna.
of some of the,
Separately then.
other than the wetlands, those will be coming up at the planning board meeting.
Yeah.
Two
Fine.
other,
I'll hold off until then.
does anyone else in the public have a question?
Can I just ask a question for something that you just said? It would seem to me that this commission could better determine you guys need to know what's happening with those wetlands. If you have a soil scientist that can provide a report about value of what's happening with the wetlands, I would imagine that the Conservation Commission can better go forward to make a more informed decision.
Well,
That's up to you.
That's my
Request.
We're not really making a decision. I think that is where it's a kind of a point of confusion for the public sometimes. The Conservation Commission can make a recommendation back to ZBA, but we have absolutely no land use authority.
Wrong
but
word.
I agree, we
A
need to have more information to be able to recommend.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as we go through there's been a lot to absorb tonight.
Quite a bit,
Yeah.
quite a bit.
That we're gonna have questions, and we're going, before we can make an opinion or recommendation. And,
Mhm.
are you gonna be available if we have questions in between? We will actually have another meeting before it's necessary for us to.
Yeah, I mean, it would be good if we, because you never know. I mean, every commission, and you know, and I think someone said disrespectful. I mean, we're always with respect. We go to every anything that anyone asked us to do. And if you have a list of questions, we would love that. We would love to be able to address them. And we didn't know what questions you may have.
Well, and that's, until we met with you tonight, we have no idea. We'll be coming up with more questions as we mull this over.
Right.
I think we could send them to Rob to get them consolidated so that we have a kind of an organized set of questions. And, you know, certainly this is you have to start somewhere. I don't think it's disrespectful. I think it was disrespectful to say that. You know, everybody has a legal right to come in person. The town of Enfield provides this additional format as a courtesy to engage people. Sometimes people aren't happy with it. It's very hard not being in person. Sometimes I am online too from time to time. But I think I certainly appreciate the information you brought. Anybody can come in person and go to Rob's office and take a look at it too.
So it would be good to probably go through Rob just as the like protocol, so we don't, you know, we don't know where questions come from, or you need to know them also, so if they can be kind of funneled through you guys. And sometimes we do have offline meetings with, you know, other, you know, concerned people, but as long as Rob knows about it and you guys, then that way you would know about it as well. And we'd be happy to answer and engage with anybody.
Does the rest of the commission feel like we're not ready to make a?
Oh, no.
Definitely.
No, my head's about to blow up.
Also almost 9.
No,
It's a real lot of information.
yeah, and in.
Iris, is there a hand?
Yeah.
Today?
Yeah.
Dave, you have a question or comment?
I'm sorry, Kate. I'm sorry, Kate, if you feel that I was disrespectful, but if I had been sitting in that room, I wouldn't have been able to see that any more of the information that I've been able to see from home. I think you guys are making the right decision about delaying any recommendation. You've got a lot more to digest than you can do in just one meeting with all that information. Thank you.
Thank you for the time. This was a very good start.
Yes.
Yeah.
thank you.
So, in terms of schedule or meetings, how does that, how do you guys want to do
The
that?
next.
We'll have we have a meeting on, what day is the first Thursday?
The first Thursday is the 7th of November.
Of November. We have our next meeting then, and I believe your meeting with the zoning board will be 14th. So in between then,
We should.
we'll
set ourselves
ask,
a deadline.
pardon me.
We should set ourselves a deadline to get
Yeah.
questions in, so we.
Well,
go
that's what I was
into
just
next
gonna say.
week.
In between then, we will talk with Rob about the appropriate way to
Yeah.
present our questions to you. And we'll try to think of all the questions we have and about the impact of wetlands. And get that taken care of so that at our November 7th meeting, we'll be able to make an informed decision on what we want to do.
Shirley,
What
I'm
was the
thinking
date for your next, meeting?
7th.
November 7th.
7th.
Yeah,
November
I'm
7th.
or
thinking
November
too.
7th? Yeah.
One of the challenges in looking at these, so I took a land use planning, so I have some basic knowledge on how to read it. That's why I asked you for some clarifications. Because if you look at this green, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And even with some knowledge of topographic maps, it's like, I didn't wear my glasses. So I think anybody who has questions and needs help reading it, you shouldn't be shy. Rob can do a lot of that. So that if you're developing questions and some of them are related to, how do I read this? You know, if Rob can't, then he could relay. it.
And do you have the possibility of maybe on November 7th having it online for us and be able to?
Oh, sure. We could do,
That would be-
online, we do,
Yeah.
you know, electronics, PDFs,
I think
boards,
that would be a
Just
tremendous
more
help.
copies. It's got,
Flash drive.
You know what would help would be a map blown up even more so than page 3 here.
Yep.
Showing all of the ponds.
yes,
That would
And-
just,
he already told me that, and yeah,
Okay.
I'd absolutely
And
have.
Rob
to-
could have that and we could
Yeah.
come in and see it.
Sure, yeah.
Did you catch it needs to be a thumb drive? That's it. That computer is a dinosaur. So it needs to come in on a thumb drive.
We can't do email on this computer.
But we'll have to
Okay.
remember that anytime, if we want to come together, or we'll need to post a meeting between now and then.
That would be a good idea.
We can even do a Dropbox or a Google Drive link, so that anything like that too, so. Or we just drive it over, it's okay.
where you coming from?
Londonderry, Manchester,
Yeah.
there's always people doing
Beautiful out
stuff.
here.
Yeah,
Lovely place.
But we would like to make arrangements to go see was it Fairway?
Fairway Oaks.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll get Rob that information. And you can coordinate a time, I'll meet you there, show you around, you know.
Is there anything else that anyone? And you can let me or Rob know questions or information you want, and we'll work with them to get everything we need.
great. Look forward to working with you.
Anyone else have anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back to confuse you some more.
I got 2 questions.
Sure, go right ahead.
Fairway Oaks, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you want, you just.
We could talk out there if you like.
We're still
Yeah,
looking
that's
at
fine.
it. We haven't adjourned. We still have one quick thing to do before we do.
Okay. What do you need me to do?
Fairway Oaks.
Yeah.
Do you have ponds?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And to go back to Jerry's question, Is there a problem with the filtration? And have you,
Well, I'm out of that project, and not that I'm aware of, but I'm very closely tied in with the city of Haverhill in that community.
Yeah.
And, none that I'm aware of.
So we like to
Okay,
find
this,
that.
but these are a different pond from what we're talking about for this pond.
and it's a bigger project too.
Well, this is larger, okay? Yes, because where I am down there was 102 units,
Right.
okay? And this one here, what the townhouses here have no impact on that. We're not doing any wetlands for them, but yes. That'll be a good project for you to see.
What about the other one you mentioned, Willis Farms?
I don't know that one. That would be from Kyle. That would be Kyle.
Okay.
It'll be one of his projects. Maybe we could coordinate both of
And
them
what was the name?
the same day.
Right.
You know what I mean? To double up the time.
Wallace,
Oh,
Wallace.
Wallace Farms, yeah, I got that down.
Yeah, that would be Kyle's project. I had
That's
no
in London
involvement with
area.
that.
Traffic controls back in Fairway Oaks.
Yeah.
It's, although it's smaller, did you need to put in traffic lights?
No.
Or anything?
No, none.
Maybe to this, they might, but that's not,
There's not gonna be enough travel for that, but you'll see how fairways are set up.
Yeah.
It's coming out on the state road 108. This is coming out like on the state road, Route 4.
The state's gonna
Yeah.
take their turn to beat him up later.
Yeah, the state, everybody's gonna get their way.
Sorry.
Everybody's gonna get their way.
Get their
Yeah,
chance, right?
Right. All right. I'm looking forward to meeting you down there. You're gonna love that.
Well,
You guys are gonna have to fill me in for the.
All right, thank you.
thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I have adjourned.
I can make the world's shortest select board report. Pardon me? You want the world's shortest select board report?
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
There's one more thing we need to decide before Halloween too.
Yeah, okay, so super short select board report is, town manager gave report, the projects are on track. And we'll be getting another update this coming Monday, so you guys can all join us Monday for a select board. I hope you will, because again, that is the septic regulation night, so please come at 6 p.m.
Oh, is that Monday?
It is Monday. I know we bounce around a little during election season, but this one is on a Monday. You're very right to
At
ask.
6 o'clock.
At 6 p.m. here.
Okay.
Under new business, we did a select board letter of support. We authorized the town manager to write it for us because we have a second iteration of the HOP grant. Don't ask me for what the abbreviation is because I can't remember.
New Hampshire Housing Opportunity Program or something.
Yes. So, and this is to help us continue to revisit things in the zoning, because when we've in the past rewritten one portion of the zoning ordinance, and I think it was a great example tonight from Sharon, it seems like that applies, but it actually only applies to that subsection. Sometimes that happens and they don't go back and reinsert pieces elsewhere, and so it's not fully aligned. So this is a process of asking what we want our zoning to look like. And again, and then doing the rewrite in a way that is more user friendly. So all good things there. And we like getting money to have help. So we said, yes, please go ahead and apply. Then we did a procedure to avoid, we're going to be doing a procedure to avoid tax deeding of mobile homes. Right now, if you tax deed a mobile home, they owe you $300 each, like half year, right? And they owe $550 of park rent every month. If they haven't been paying their park rent and we take it for tax deeding, we owe the park rent. So we owe significantly more money that is owed to us in taxes. So we don't want to take that and pay the lawyer's fees, right? That's not a good deal. So looking at a procedure, we've done it before, but we're just formalizing it where we we forgive the taxes and the park themselves takes it and takes care of it. It gets it back onto their rolls faster. It gets it back onto our tax rolls faster. So that will be coming back to the select board, but that was a preliminary discussion. We did an introductory discussion about Depot Street, Union Street, and the police building because we're going back to visit the recommendations from the Municipal Facilities Advisory Committee, version 1, in which they made some recommendations on what to keep and what to sell. Depot Street was on the sell list. We do not own the land, so that's very complicated. We're working on looking at that. Union Street was also on the sell list. There was a general consensus to look at selling it. And there was a question about whether to do it through a realtor or put it out for RFP and what to do on timing if we want to run it simultaneously. And then the police building, that is gonna need some operations recommendations that are a little more solid, so that one got set aside. There was no major decisions made, but that police building one's gonna be further down the road. We had to discuss whether we wanted to buy the land under Depot Street. There's contaminants we know in the basement. We don't own the land, we own just the lot, the little depot. So, just talking about, you know, if we were to buy it from the state, are we making them obviously do like any soil mitigation issue? Yeah, because we don't want to own that. So there's that little piece.
I want to avoid it.
Yeah.
Avoid it like the plague.
Yeah.
We don't really need to own more problems, I think is the general consensus. So it's figuring out how to do it in a way that protects our taxpayers and honors, you know, the building and what needs to be done going forward.
But that place is so dang cute.
You know, someone may very well want it and they may want to deal with the state. The question was, do we want to, if this, we can get the state to do any remediation and any brownfields testing, right? And get it off it. If we could do that, would we want to buy it and then subdivide it and keep the parking as public parking and then sell? Right? Because you don't necessarily always want to give away parking downtown either, or not give away, but sell. So there's just all those little pieces in play that we're looking at. So that was the meeting.
Okay, wow.
And one of the, if you are not the select board meeting, you can always go online and hear the whole recording.
You can come hang out on YouTube.
So I had another meeting that night, and that's what I did was go on and listen to the whole recording, and it's really great.
Their minute taker is also really cool. So
I mean,
like
yeah.
to read minutes.
just in case you didn't know, it's Whitney. So they're very good minutes.
Then we'll agree with that comment.
Okay. So I quickly gotta have a couple updates too. Carol, I was gonna ask you if you had any more to share on the,
Not yet, no.
okay. And I talked to Susan Quinlan, and she's gotta do more planning. She does want to partner with the Conservation Commission on doing a garden at the pollinator garden at on the museum property. And would welcome us to be part of that. And the other thing is one thing I did have, and I meant to send these to you too, there's a new environmental fact sheet that just came out on municipal ordinances to protect water quality. And I just got a copy of that from Lisa, and I will forward it to you. I meant to do that and didn't got to, with all the other things we're thinking about, but anyways, and then the trunk or treat. Do we want to do the trunk or treat? It's a great community thing to do.
I think we should. You know, I mean, all you gotta do is decorate a trunk and.
We decorate, come up with, try to come up with, it's really fun to come up with some costumes that are environmentally related.
You could always
But,
do this or you become extinct and someone could be the dinosaur.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I wore a dinosaur costume year before last.
I have
Still have
a
it?
full-on panda costume.
Yeah, see, think about it. We can, and one of the suggestions was that we give the wooden pencils instead. And Jean sent me something.
You have to give
today.
them some candy though, otherwise they're not gonna like us.
We can, Jean sent something today that I couldn't download that, Jean.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But it actually has a downloadable coloring book for kids.
Yeah,
Oh,
autumn leaves.
Yeah, you have to send.
And it's got a very simple explanation of what makes leaves green. And then when autumn and fall starts to come and the tree needs to hibernate, then
That we
the
do.
colors start to come out. And it's very simple chemistry explanation, but very easy to understand. And then a little coloring book. So I know I'm pretty sure I sent it to you on an iPhone, from an
Yeah.
iPhone.
It said there's an error here and it couldn't.
Okay, well, we'll figure that out.
But no, but don't you think that would be a good, kids love activities?
Yeah, it's from an organization in the Smoky Mountains area, because they have a lot of color there that people love to enjoy.
Yeah.
And so, it's on their website, it's from their website, so we'll figure out how to get it to you and you can look at it. They want people to look at it, I want people to download it. So
That'd be great if
Fun
you could
kids.
do that with the candy attached to it or something.
Honestly, if you put out like a few different things and you have someone there, like I've done these a lot where you're like, help yourself to a treat and then some parents are like, oh, that kid can't have a single other piece of candy and they go for that. So you give them options and kids like to think they have options.
Yeah.
My kids like to color, they color everything.
I was gonna say, it's amazing how kids love to do activities.
I know adults who like.
So we probably need to get that stuff for you.
Yeah.
Motion to spend
Yeah,
to.
so, we should have a motion to, order that, because it will be an expense to the, conservation.
Well, I'd like to make that motion
Okay.
that we do trunk and treat. What are we gonna do and consider the,
I think we could just give it a dollar amount up to and you guys can figure it out.
Yeah,
yeah, up to what can we spend? Like, $100,
pardon me.
$100?
I think,
Maybe two.
I think you might need two.
Yeah,
Okay.
Candy is, you don't wanna look at the price. of
Yeah.
candy.
And they'll
and they
want
do get a lot of kids.
Right.
How many
Tons,
kids?
yeah.
I'll ask how many, I
Oh,
forget, I saw
yeah.
how many were there last year, but.
And not everyone takes one of everything, so you can do a mix and it will be okay.
Okay, all right, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Hi.
Anyone against?
Okay, now we have to figure out
Now,
how
is everyone
to
available?
do this.
I forget what night. it
I'm at a
is.
different trunk,
Saturday,
but I can help you like
October
pull the
26th.
tent poles and.
Pardon me?
October 26th.
October
Yep.
26th. That's good, so you can still be home for trick or treaters.
A lot of the decorating I've seen has been like, made out of paper and you just put it on the open trunk.
We just raid the kids' stuffed animals and take their animals from them and stuff. It depends on the theme. We just go,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think if you have a panda,
Repurpose some things from your house.
Yeah,
I mean, I mostly
Well,
take them from the church. Cause it's their trunk.
no, this is full on, this is from China. And so it's like a real
You
head.
should have some bamboo then.
Oh, invasive species. We could have an invasive
We could-
species.
Yes, we can,
Like
have,
So we
alien,
need-
give them a little alien, I like make them creepy and give them teeth.
yeah.
I'll make you a design.
We can label them. We can label, we could have one side native,
I mean, I
one
guess
side
I-
invasive.
Good idea.
I like it.
Well,
So we think
we're
we're
gonna
gonna
have
put
to
these
meet
ideas
some-
together. We won't, probably won't be meeting. It depends on what happens with this, whether we need it. We might need an extra meeting this month. If we all go down to see that property, we'll post it.
Yeah, and then you could always do the rest of your ideas. If
And
you
we can
guys,
talk then, yeah.
if you want something like printed, let me know and I can make you and print them.
Oh, that would be great.
the coloring book.
Yeah.
The town we can get, yeah, and we'll get the town. When I say I'm gonna print them, mostly I'm gonna like,
Ask people to.
I'll make a modification if we need to and then ask the town to print it. I'm not actually gonna.
Yeah, I can make a trip to BJ's and pick up candy.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And I have to go soon though, because they're putting, throwing away the Halloween stuff and putting in Christmas.
Oh, shit.
I saw Valentine's Day somewhere.
Isn't that ridiculous? That's marketing.
Oh, wait, it's.
That's outrageous.
It is.
Yes. Yes. So,
Are we
I think
done?
that was, let's see, the only thing was you got the thing on the rodent webinar, did you get that?
Yeah, I'm not gonna
That's
be
how-
able,
Pardon me?
I'm not gonna be able to watch it. Will they do a rerun? Do they have it online?
Lots of times they provide a recording to people who have watched it. You'll get one sent afterwards. I'll check to see
Okay.
if, it is, yeah.
And on that note, you know, cause it was a chemical that that was in that pesticide that was killing all the other wildlife, right?
They ate rodents.
Right, cause they eat the rodents.
Yeah.
We have been spraying our yard with, something called Pure Solution. And you know, this brought, when I read that, I said, I wonder if the Pure Solution is the same thing.
He's
That if it kills ticks, is it killing butterflies and bees?
This
Yeah,
pure
that's a good
solution is
question.
repel or kill. Cause they're organic.
Yeah,
usually. So they typically, organics tend to repel. I mean, there's some that
Good
kill.
point, though. If it kills one thing,
Very good.
what does it do to something?
When I looked up what one of the main components, it's rosemary. Which was very safe.
Diane,
Mm.
so you haven't heard anything negative about it?
I mean, I know a ton of people who use it because it's organic. I don't know about it. I don't know if it kills pests, but I would think on the rodents. Usually it's the stuff they use to kill rodents is pretty evil.
Yeah,
It kills
but when
cats and
I,
dogs too.
yeah, when I read the
Yeah.
blurb about that, the rodent thing, it just popped in, it never popped in my head before. And that made it pop into my head, that, well,
Yes, it kills one thing, what's it doing to something else?
exactly,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a food chain.
but it sure does get rid of the ticks.
that's important.
Mhm. Yeah, it says founded to reduce the widespread use of toxic chemicals, organic lawn care, natural tick control. So it all says control, botanical control, mosquito control.
Does anyone else have any new business or old business you want to bring up? No, shall we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. I think that it was a long meeting, but we needed.
Productive.
I hope you guys will come hang out with me on